What version are you operating with? This is Tracy with Tracy Talks, a podcast about life, looking at life from a new perspective to gain wisdom and understanding in hopes to know yourself more. I am getting ready to move, and moving feels like an excruciating process. Due to circumstances in my life, I have moved several times within the past 12 years. There's nothing fun about moving. This move feels a little different though. It feels like it is a cleansing and a starting over. I consider myself somewhat organized, but I still have storage containers of stuff. And I think for the most part, I know what's in them. I know what I have carried forward through each move, but this time feels different. It feels like I really need to figure out who I am right now. I started going through a lot of the storage containers because I wanted to make sure that everything was packed efficiently. They were organized in like items, so there wasn't something random stuck in a tub that I'm never going to find again. And it's interesting when you start looking at all of the items that you have. And so much of this I have brought along from different time periods. I have sentimental items that my great aunt made me a couple of rag dolls that she hand stitched, and I have those. I have items from my 20s. I have items from my former married life. And I have all of these items, and they're all different versions of me. Some of the items are very difficult to part with, whereas other items feel easier. And as I reflect on what I want to save and what I want to let go of, it's just really made me think about what version am I now? And do I need all of these physical items to help me determine who I am? Or are they holding me to a different version, an older version? I'm no longer that person. I'm no longer that little girl or that woman. I don't feel like I want to just throw everything away and start over, but I'm not all of those different versions. Or am I? Or am I a mixture of all of them together? I believe all of my experiences accumulate. They have created the person that I am today, or helped created it. All of those experiences were a layering, a building process. Do I need all of those items to represent each one of those layers? Or can I know within me that's how I got here? The reality is nobody wants my collectibles that I have carried along the way. Are they badges of honor that we had fought hard for? The proof we made it through the experience, that time period, and it's the object that we have that acknowledges that we did it. At times, it's a very emotional process. And when I have these items and I haven't used them in years, and I look at them and I feel somewhat obligated to keep them, but they just don't fit in the vision of myself that I have for the future. They don't feel necessary for my future version. I've kind of just been looking at what I have, what is necessary, what is needed, to determine if I need all of this for my future version. Does my vision of who I want to be, does it change that? Does it impact that? Does it improve that version? Moving isn't fun. By no means is it a fun experience. It's interesting how some people never move in their lifetime, and yet I have moved a lot in the last few years. it certainly does feel like a shedding of what I'm ready to let go of, both physically, emotionally, and spiritually. It feels like I may just be going through the items in my house, but I'm really going through the emotions that I've stored within me. I'm going through how I see myself and updating those versions. And it's interesting because when we see ourselves out into the world and we see how we interact, oftentimes we don't see ourselves accurately. We don't know what other people see. We don't know how they see us, but oftentimes there's a big difference in how we think we show up. There are times I show up, I think I'm showing up as an old version, that my thought hasn't updated, and I don't realize people don't see me in that version. There are times it's the reverse of that as well, where we show up and people see us in an old, outdated version, like my family. There are times when they are talking to the 5-year-old Tracy, and I can tell that by the topics they're talking about and how they're talking about me, that they don't want to recognize and see me, who I am right now. I also experienced that from childhood relationships. A few years ago, we had a class reunion. I really didn't want to go. There were people that I did want to see, and most of those people I saw off and on anyway. But there were a couple of people I just didn't want to interact with. I had prepared myself to address some of these things that I didn't address when I was 17. I wanted to say some of the things that I didn't say at that time. I had prepared myself to react to the teenage version of them. What I was not prepared for was they weren't that version anymore. I was surprised. I didn't know how to respond. I didn't see them maturing past that. I didn't see them in a functioning adult who had feelings and who could be thoughtful. I didn't see that. I was still seeing them almost frozen in time as the rude, obnoxious teenager. A lot of us hold people to outdated versions, even ourselves. That is something that's easy to do when you don't see people. Like all of your classmates, we are still seeing them like classmates, people that you haven't seen in 40 years. That version doesn't exist anymore. It's different. That version of me at 20 doesn't exist anymore. There are parts of me that are still there, but I have grown, I've adapted, I've learned. Hopefully I've matured. Hopefully I've become a better person. This moving process, this going through all of these stuff, all of this accumulation of memories, I'm ready to let it go. I'm ready to let this pain, this version, some of it, it's not all bad. Some of it are good memories, but it just doesn't have anything to do with where I am now and where I want to go in the future. What are you holding on to that doesn't represent you anymore? What are you holding on to that's an outdated version of you? And when I look at how I show up, I know that some of these versions of me, they feel comfortable, they feel familiar. It's also a way for us to play small, to stay in a version that would be better if we let go, that we are here to grow. We are here to change. We are here to evolve. And sometimes that unknown version seems scary and frightening, and the old version seems familiar and safe. And as I go through all of my belongings, it is helping me to look at how I show up, what persona I'm wearing, and ultimately how I can show up now as the best version of me, and whatever that is. How do I show up simply as Tracy? Thank you for listening to this podcast of Tracy Talks. Please like and share with others who would enjoy listening to this podcast. And until next time, we meet again.